Hey everybody, what's going on? Rob Cesternino back with some Traitors feedback for week 8. And very excited. We got a great guest here with us today to talk about the Traitors. A couple weeks ago, he texted me and said, "Hey, let's talk about the Traitors." I said, "Bet." And now here he is from Survivor 39. It's Jamal Shipman. Jamal, how are you?
Hey, Rob Cesternino, what's going on? I am doing all right. Happy to be back in the saddle with you again. It's been a little bit, so
Yes.
I'm happy to jump in and talk with you some Traitors.
Well, I was thrilled when you reached out, and I'm so glad that we got you here. Puya is traveling today. He'll be back with us on Thursday to talk about episode number 9 when we come back, but we are here streaming live. Of course, Jamal, we had a great conversation on Friday, an extended interview with the recently banished traitor, Boston Rob Mariano. Had a extended interview with him. People could see that in our Traitors podcast feed, WeKnowTraitors.com. And somebody that, did you ever get to go and visit Boston Rob on the island of the Idols?
I did.
Yes.
I visited Boston Rob and Sandra on Island of the Idols. So I know everything
Oh, yeah,
about
and you got hosed, right?
I got hosed,
Yes.
right? Exactly.
He asked you if you ever saw a pencil.
If I ever saw a pencil on Survivor. Apparently there has been a pencil on Survivor, which I learned post. But at the moment, it was new. It was a new idea for me.
Yes, yes. It's all coming back to me, and the fake legacy advantage and and all of that. So, okay,
wait, I think that's technically old era, right? That's old.
In the
era,
old era. Yeah, you're old school now, Jamal.
I'm young old school. I think that's what's happening here.
Yeah. Okay,
but
so
let me just say, no, sorry, can't let you go. I have to say, I watched that extended interview. It is phenomenal. You did a phenomenal job.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's an incredible interview, and he gives really awesome insight into how a gamer, which is a word that's now more popular these days, thinks about a game like Traitors. So that was really great. I recommend it highly.
Okay, and we also talked with Derek last week as well, so you can check out those exit interviews. As for this week, Sam said, "Hey, make sure you tell people about the exit interviews." And I said, "What do we need to tell people?" He's like, "That people are saying, why don't we talk to Sierra or Chriselle?" And the answer is they give us who they give us. Maybe they try to steer. Okay, because we get almost anybody from Survivor, Big Brother. I don't think we've been snubbed on just about anybody. And we're supposed to. I texted with Wes. Wes is going to come on and at some point down the road. Everybody that's from the games they give to us. But then I don't know if they go to the other podcasts. It's like, okay, you talk about Bravo. Like maybe they feel like that they don't want to do a million interviews. We get what we get, okay? We don't have a lot of control over it.
Okay, right? Like be grateful for what you get. I appreciate that, Rob. Put us in check. Put us, the audience, in check a little bit.
Yeah, audience. Like, look, it's not like we're not like, like we don't care. Look, we ask for everybody, and that's who they give us, okay? And we deal with it. So the secret to happiness is low expectations, Jamal.
That is my mantra.
we're doing our best. That's what we get. Okay. All right. So Jamal, let's talk about the Traitors now. Were you a Traitors super fan coming into this season?
You know, I wasn't. So I had an interesting journey, right? Where I was a Cirie fan. I just came into the world as a Cirie fan. Cirie was actually my first season of Survivor that I watched. So from a long time ago.
Which one, Panama?
Yeah, her very first season. Yeah. When I started watching the game, and so got into Survivor, followed her. She's like Survivor royalty to me. So when she was on the very first season of Traitors, I was like, okay, new show, weird thing. I didn't follow the like world franchise of the game. It was new to me as an American in the USA. And so I just loved watching her and kind of fell in love with the characters on that season. But, and I'm sure we'll get all into it in terms of what the game is, but I watched the first season and I wasn't hooked by the game. I wasn't hooked by like the actual show, the mechanics of it. It was confusing to me. And so I actually skipped season 2. I did not watch season 2 when it was airing. I've gone back now and kind of filled in the gaps a little bit. But
even though another one of your mentors, Sandra Diaz-Twine, was there.
Yeah, even though Sandra was there, it didn't hook me. Parvati, she was great, and I now know when I look back. But yeah, then I started watching this season, and I was like, much better show. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, excited to get into it here with you. We've got questions from the listeners, and we'll get into that. But give me your thoughts on the season so far, Jamal.
I think the season is great. I think we could talk about it in a couple of different ways. But I just want to start like with the shape of the game, right? The actual, like, what are we doing here? What are we watching? What are we watching these people do? And I think that's what I had a hard time reconciling the first time through. But when I started watching this third season, it made a little bit more sense to me because of the challenges. That's what I want to kind of zero in on, right? And
Yes.
I think I've heard you mention this before earlier, right? Like when the challenges are just who's going to go get money versus who's going to, try to get a shield. It's just not that interesting. It's not that interesting to me, because a traitor could go get a shield to be a decoy, or a faithful could go get a shield because they're afraid to die, and it doesn't really give you a lot of information. So I really liked some of the challenges this time through, where it's like choices you make as the challenge goes makes you weigh a little more intensely your role as a traitor or a faithful, and how you want to be perceived by the group. So I think that was great. I think that's a really great tweak to the game. Go ahead.
Yeah, they've done a better job back from like the early days, back in the Cerise season in season 1. Like they're really, I think that the shields didn't even come in until like very late in the game. And so it was really just about like who's not putting money into the pot. Why is Kate throwing the money away? And it was like really a time waster. I still feel like that to some degree. They're a little bit of like a time filler in the episode of like, how do we get this thing to an hour? Okay, let's have like 25 minutes on the thing. And really, I think that most weeks you could probably, and this week especially, you could probably just skip the entire challenge and like not miss a beat. I do think that there is like some entertaining moments. I know Tom Sandoval singing his nursery rhymes backwards was highly entertaining, but overall, not adding a ton to the game.
Right. It wasn't that last challenge. I mean, for us musically inclined people, Rob, we really enjoyed that challenge.
Yes.
No. I agree with you completely. I found it entertaining, but because that kind of challenge came later in the game, where we actually know the people. Right. Like I didn't really know who the people were towards the beginning. So it was really cool. Like I really liked the one where they had to choose the portraits of the people that they wanted to put in the frame, and Danielle twice in a that whole thing. And then I really liked the one with the heads, where they had to like put their own heads on a statue, and everyone who got a head on the statue got a shield. It just was really clever, and it really gave the players an opportunity to use those moments to either convey loyalty and to solidify a bond with somebody, versus look out for themselves. And what would you do if you were a faithful or a traitor? Just the psychology of that. It's really, really cool, woven into the game.
So, Jamal, coming in as a person who's not a Big Brother person, I'd love to get your reaction to Danielle Reyes and her game, because I think that it's been polarizing to the fans online.
Yeah, I have stayed away from the online discourse. So this is a complete.
We can have a nuanced discussion here.
Oh no, 100%. What I was about to say is that I have a complete the third season of Traitors introduced me to Danielle Reyes. Like I don't know who she is, and my very first impression is she is awful. She's awful at this game, and I don't know why people aren't picking up more on her inability to trait. What's the verb for traitor? Trait? To
be treacherous? Yeah.
Thank you. No, that's
be traitorous.
Be traitorous. To traitor. To traitor. I think that's the word. She doesn't traitor well, Rob. That's what I'm trying to say.
Be a traitor. I don't know.
Yeah. So she just like was making weird decisions at that one with the frames, where she twice didn't choose herself and then got called out. Like, aren't you afraid of dying? And she was like, oh shoot, yeah, I'm supposed to be afraid of dying myself. And then the fights that she's getting in with Carolyn, and just like making complete wrong read about who she's working with. Just really not good traitor gameplay. Highly entertaining, but I'm not impressed with her game skills at the moment.
But nevertheless, here she is, episode 9. Not a ton of suspicion on her. I do think that's something that is helping her in the castle is, they're not seeing everything like we are. But I do think that, when she comes in and the players who don't know who she is, like these players don't really know who Tony is, except they hear like, oh, this guy won Survivor twice. You know, I think that's sort of like people just have like a log line about them of like, okay, oh, who's this person? Oh, like this is a person who's a Survivor winner. But when you get to Danielle, they just like, oh, who is this? Oh, she's this a grandma that was on Big Brother. And I think that like her threat level is, I think, low enough where I don't think that people are highly suspicious of her.
No, I think you're right about that. But this is actually a really good segue into one of my other like questions about this game, right? Which is like, what are people doing when they say, oh, she's a gamer, I don't trust her, she's really good at the game? Like, yeah, I get it if you're playing Survivor, right? Where like everybody has the same set of roles and rules and ability and goals, right? Towards the end. But Traitors, you literally sit around a table and Alan goes around and taps you on the shoulder.
Yeah.
That is the only distinction between you and her, or you and him. And you're gonna just spend all this mental energy trying to like bring in all of your preconceived notions and your misconceptions of people's personality traits and quirks, and all of a sudden like traitor, like to be a traitor becomes this really interesting stand-in for I don't like you, I don't trust you, I think you're capable of deceit, right? Like they put all this meaning on whether or not someone is a traitor that I just don't think is founded, and it's really befuddling to me how much they incorporate those kinds of things to then mean must be a traitor, I'm voting for her because I can't trust her. Like I just don't think that's the right way to think about how to win this game.
Yeah, I feel like that everybody's just on the hunt for any sort of like behavior that is giving them any sort of like distrust, where anybody who's like hesitating answering a question, and I think that people are sort of like just seeing ghosts a little bit, where you saw it with like Chrishell and Nikki, where like Chrishell read like Nikki's face one time when she was talking about a thing. Oh my God, that was so suspicious. And then they're really just going off of that. But often there's not a ton of correct information that the players are making their guesses off of.
Yeah. And it's not correct information. It makes you embarrassingly wrong. Like I don't think any other show sets up such immediate humiliation the way that this show does, where these people are super confident. No, you sneezed in a particular way and you stepped forward with your left foot versus your right, and I know, like, whatever they're using, right? And then they reveal that they're faithful, and it's like, you were just completely wrong. Completely.
Well, you got to gas yourself up to go into the round table. Who's going to follow you if you're sort of like, maybe, I don't know.
But okay, so this gets at it, Rob, because this is what I want to talk about. What is the show to people who are trying to win the game, right? So obviously the show is faithfuls need to go find the traitors, right? And I get that that's like the distracting premise of the show. Just like in Survivor, it's to survive, right? But honestly, because there's so little information, and because I think the like, I don't know, the reward for finding the traitors throughout the body of the show is so low. I just don't think that you as an individual player playing this game, I don't think you should be so invested in being right about who the traitors are so early.
Yeah.
I think what you should be thinking about is, who do I want to play with? Who I want to be in the end game with, who's going to not banish me and steal money from me at the very end, and create a very close bond with one or two people, and just always move with those people. Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you nail the traitors in the first, second, fourth, fifth round of the round table. It's just not consequential to your individual game. It's the show's game, right? It's like what the show is be doing. But as an individual player, I don't know why people are putting their necks out thinking that they need to like get it right to nail a traitor, right?
Yeah, I think that's why we need like the Sandovals and the people who are sort of like, as Boston Rob said, the people that are thinking about it just on that first level. You kind of need those people who are in the game who are thinking of that, because the show does, I think, break when everybody is like really, okay, well, hey, great. If we find who the traitor is and we banish them, then great. Then they're just going to make it a totally new traitor that we have no information and we can't, operate as efficiently as when we had the information. We knew who the traitor was and we could work within those confines. But now, okay, now it's a random person. And now you're back to square one because you ended up finding the traitor. And so that was something in season 2. If you go back and you watch that, Sandra, I think, was doing a pretty good job of like, okay, I identified that Parvati is a traitor, and I'm gonna try to like stay close to the people who are the traitors. And it was a little bit more of a numbers game. So she, I think, did a really good job with that back in the second season.
That is amazing. That's really great. I wish I'm gonna go back and fill myself in on that one, because as I'm watching season 3, like I'm jumping from season 1 to season 3, you can see how like there's a huge gap in my like understanding of how people have played this game. But I'm watching season 3, literally like, I'm sorry, why is it so important to find a traitor? I don't get it. And in fact, here's another weird thing that I think is either they're not showing it to us as they air the show, or it's not happening. But don't you find it strange, Rob, that people are like in a room of 5 to 6 people and they're like talking so freely as though it is known that everyone's a faithful in that room? I feel like every person I'm going to talk to, if I were ever to be in this house, I would be like, I think you're faithful, but in the case that you are a traitor, here's what I want you to know. Right? Like, people don't talk right to the traitors. I don't get it. Like, I would find so much enjoyment of having a relationship with someone being like, hey, don't know if you're a traitor or not. In fact, I'd like to work with you. I would love it if you were faithful. Let's like work together. But at every point in the game, I just want you to know, if you're a traitor, keep me around because I'm going to vote with you. Or if you're a traitor, know this information so that you can take that up to the turret and get the traitors to do this. I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying, if here's what I want you to know as a traitor. Nobody does that. Why not?
I just don't know if you're allowed to do that. This is if Puyal listens to this back, we'll get the answer if you're allowed to do that, or if you are allowed to do that. Do they put those types of conversations in the show? Because does it like really just break the facade so much of that people would contemplate working with a traitor?
Okay, but that's not our fault, right?
I'm not disagreeing with you. I think what you're saying is smart. I just don't know if the show is going to either let you do it, or if they do let you do it, are they ever going to show that on the show?
Right. Oh, I feel like they should. Just because I feel like that gives people thinking at this level, as Boston Rob would say, like when you're thinking on third level, fourth level, it gives you something to really enjoy people navigate, right? Like not only am I playing the faithful game to try to find the traitors, but I'm also trying to work my connections so that if you are a traitor, like you said, Sandra did, which is great if she did, it becomes part of how you communicate to the people in the room.
Jamal, we ended the last episode with a real disagreement between Carolyn and Danielle, and they didn't decide whether they were going to banish or seduce to recruit another player. Do you have any thoughts on what they should be doing?
Absolutely. Carolyn, God, I love Carolyn so much. I think Carolyn is such a gem. It's so fun to watch. And I think she is a level of brilliance at games like this that is unseen in reality show lore. But that said, she's playing it wrong. She's playing it wrong. She should let Danielle get her friend. What's her name?
Brittany.
Carolyn should let Danielle bring Brittany in and do the whole thing. Maybe like, oh, I don't know. It's going to be 2 against 1. Okay, Danielle, I'll do you the solid. Like, let's go ahead and recruit Brittany and throw Brittany to the wolves. Just immediately throw her to the wolves. I was hearing you and Puya's conversation about that being a strategy in other traitor franchises, which is awesome because it is the play. It's the play, and she already has suspicion on her. I will not use the word sus, just so you understand. No more of this.
No Gen Z terms from you, Jamal. No brain rot.
No, thank you. The word is suspicion, guys. I don't know why sus is.
We won't even say if somebody is skibbity.
Nope, none of that. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Anyways, there was some suspicion already on Brittany, and right, because Derek threw her under the bus on his way out. Let her get recruited, and then just plant the flag, plant the seeds. They're already gunning for her, and Carolyn can just masterfully control the turret. She's just not thinking that way. She's just not thinking that way. She's very, very on the surface of like, you lied to me, you're coming for me. Go ahead.
Boston Rob, that he said when he was talking about like what he was thinking about doing, he was saying that, he could have left Derek in and then hopefully, gotten Danielle out and then recruited Derek and then, had Derek be murdered, basically like bring him up into the turret once they ended up finding a woman. And then, because then that would have like been one of the cage boys and he could have like ultimately said, see, oh, wait, Derek was the traitor. But I just think that it's going to be hard for, you bring, I'm trying to figure out which direction I want to go. I just don't know if for Danielle, if she needs Brittany in the turret at this point.
Well, she thinks she does.
She thinks she does. I feel like that Danielle doesn't need her in there. Like, okay, you've got somebody, on the outside who's working with you. I think that she should probably murder and then see if she could, work with Brittany to get out Carolyn from the outside.
Oh, absolutely. That's
and then bring in Brittany.
That's 100% the right play. But as we have been seeing, I think Danielle is literally making the wrong move at every turn. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually not sure how she is surviving here. I'm losing the details on this, but there was tension in the turret, right? And then she wanted to work with Rob to get out Carolyn. Is that what it was? Instead of, that's right. Danielle didn't trust Carolyn, and Carolyn was all in. I was ready to work with Danielle against Boston Rob. But then Danielle turns around and starts to throw Carolyn's name around. And I was like, what are you doing? How does that make sense at all? Like, you literally got handed an alliance against this guy coming in with all his reputation and all that stuff. Just got out Bob the drag queen, and now you're feeling alone. Like, she was right there for the taking. And she dropped that ball. So anyway, so that's why I'm like, okay, Danielle doesn't do the right thing. Danielle's just not going to make the right call for her own personal gain. You're absolutely right. She should not have Brittany in the turret, but she wants it because she wants her alliance. She wants her to be working with somebody in the Traitors that she can trust. She knows Carolyn doesn't trust her own fault. So yeah, it's not the right move. But if she wants to do it, it's the right move for Carolyn to let that happen, because I think she could really play that much better from inside the turret. Well,
how do you think this impasse is going to get resolved? Do you think that they murder, or do you think that they recruit?
What do I think they're going to do? I don't know. Whenever they set this up, like, oh, what are they going to do? It really can go either way, because it's about like who wins in that last few sentences of the discussion. I could see it going either way. I could see Carolyn not letting Brittany up in all her obstinance about that, and them deciding to murder because they're at an impasse about who to bring in. I could see that being like the easier way forward for them. And that could work, that could work in out for them in some way. I just think it's a missed opportunity for Carolyn.
It's interesting because I feel like we've had almost an impasse in almost every single time that they've been up in the turret. And we've seen both of them sort of yield to the other parties in different ways. Carolyn, it will like sometimes get frustrated and just be like, fine, whatever you want. Okay, fine. Like, I'm done, whatever. Carolyn will do that. Danielle, I think sometimes will like try to appease the other person. Like, okay, fine. You could have it your way, where she's trying to like get in good with Rob. She's going to give him what he wants in that circumstance. I just wonder in this scenario, I think that maybe they end up murdering, because that's like, okay, well, I want Gabby, you want Brittany. We're not going to come to it. Let's have our agreement of who do we murder.
Yeah. And I think the reason that would happen is because they're both kind of strategizing on a very basic level, on an emotional level for their own game, you know. Like Carolyn just will not be taken advantage of. Like she is so focused on not being seen as dumb or not going along as a sheep, right? To just be at the whim of someone else's game. But then at the same time, and me and my partner were actually talking about this, right? That like Carolyn's self-story, right? Like the story that Carolyn has about herself is that she doesn't get taken seriously. You watch her on Survivor, you see her on Traitors, you watch all her interviews. Her whole story about herself is that people don't take her seriously. And unfortunately, right, the reasons why are because of her demeanor and her history and the way she carries herself and all that. But I think it's also because she doesn't actually stand up for herself. Like she'll put a big show, just like you said, right? She'll be like, oh my God, you know, I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen. But then she will do a big old like, fine, you know, you're not going to listen to me anyway. So just do what you want to do. And I just think that Carolyn could afford to like put her foot down a little more if she wants to ever break the cycle of her story to herself, which is that no one takes me seriously, you know?
Jamal, have you had to deal with in your Survivor experience any personality types similar to a Carolyn?
I feel like this is a softball question that you are lobbing up for me, putting it on the tee to draw the comparison to one Nora from season 39.
Well,
Island
are they similar or are there big differences between them?
They're very similar. They're very similar players. You know, I think Nora and Carolyn feel differently about themselves for sure, right? Like, I think Nora comes in with a lot of confidence, right? She feels like she knows everything, right? She was a big nutrition person, so she would just lecture us for hours and hours about, you know, the nutrition levels and how much you need to eat about certain things and lifestyle things. And she was big on her money. I think she was a tax something or other in her day, CPA or something, right? So she was always telling us about how we should be managing our money and we're doing everything wrong if we don't do exactly what she said, right? And so it's hard to work with that kind of person because they just think they're right all the time, right? And it's hard to like convince them without letting them feel like it's their idea, right, to do the thing. But I think a similar level of decision making is where I think Nora made very emotional decisions, in that she just was like, I don't like that person, get him out of here, or that person was rude to me or came at me, so I don't want to work with them, get them away from me, right? Like I think they have a very knee-jerk, like non-strategic mode in games like these, where I think Carolyn very much is there, right? She's like, I don't trust you, so I'm not gonna listen to anything you say. I'm not gonna consider any of the strategy that you're trying to feed me, because you clearly don't have my best interests at heart, and that's just the way that's gonna go. And I'm not even thinking about anything strategic about you going forward. It's just that's where my like locus of decision making is gonna come from, you know?
Well,
yeah,
Carolyn is in a good spot here. We have a question from Christian who says, who's more likely to win, Carolyn or Brittany? I think that probably if we were going to do power rankings, probably two of the top people that we might say are going to make it to the end of the show. One from the faithful side, one from the traitor side. How do you see this all playing out?
Okay, so this is where, if we could slow this part down though, because here's where I need to remind myself about how this game ends.
Yes.
It is the last few people, right? Maybe four or so, right? And then they have to end the game or continue to banish, right? And then they continue to banish if one person says, nope, we're not ending the game. I think there's a traitor among us. They vote, that person goes, and then they have to do that all over again until they're down to where they're sure that there's no more traitors among them. And if you are a traitor at the end, you have to get the other faithfuls to end the game with you there so that you win all the money. That's the mechanic, right?
Yes. And the faithful, like, they don't know if there's still a traitor there, and they can keep going until they get down to, I think, 2. I'm not sure if they can go down from 2 to 1.
Okay. So doesn't that necessarily incentivize you to find out who the traitors are and just ride them all the way to the end and then just kick them out, right? Like that's
it should. I don't know if that's how people are playing the game, but yeah, it should.
So when you're like, okay, so who's most likely to get to the end? It's like, who's going to figure out that strategy, right? Like that's how you
who are the people who are not going to share the money with me?
Right. Right. Who are people who are not going to share the money with me? Right. Because, So let's say that Carolyn is the last traitor left among two other
Right.
people. She needs to make sure she's with two other people who really, really think that she's a faithful.
Yes.
I don't know that Danielle. Wait. You said it was Brittany. What was the question between Brittany and Caroline?
Between Brittany or Carolyn, who has a better chance to win?
Oh, Carolyn, hands down. Now that we've talked that all the way out, yeah, Carolyn, hands down. Because who's going to be sitting there at the end with Brittany, positive that she's a faithful? Nobody. Nobody, unless it's Danielle, who's then is going to just steal all the money from her because she's a traitor.
Yeah, I do wonder if there's maybe some meta of where, okay, we've already found Boston Rob, we found Danielle, we found, I mean, I don't know if they're going to recruit anybody, but it's like, boy, there's a lot of reality people. But I guess, we have Carolyn, who's also a reality person. Yeah, I don't know if they're thinking that way. Let me ask you this question from Wes, not Wes. 7 out of the 10 assigned traitors from the first 3 seasons came from either Survivor or Big Brother. How might season 4 look strategically if there's no CBS strategist in the turret? Do you feel like that whoever goes for Traitor season 4 from our beloved colleagues of Survivor and Big Brother, do you think that they are headed into a bloodbath?
Because now the assumption is that
isn't the meta just okay? Let's just keep voting out Survivors and Big Brothers until ultimately we find the traitors.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I don't think that makes sense. I don't think that makes sense because my assumption that Alan has about who should be a traitor is the most entertaining traitors possible.
Right.
Like Bob the drag queen, Carolyn, that like entertaining, like Boston Rob, really, really interesting stories to track, right? Because again, not like Survivor, right? Where like the most interesting person becomes the storyline of the show because they're just playing a really interesting game. In Traitors, the story is the traitor's strategy. That's the whole show, right? So I don't think it's more interesting to have gamers as traitors. I think it's just as interesting to have somebody who doesn't know what the heck they're doing and is just trying to like survive and go with the personalities and the relationships that they have in the house. So I don't think that that's a surefire strategy. I'm sorry, I don't think that makes sense.
Jamal, have you given any thought to what survivors would be good for Traitor season 4?
What survivors would be good?
Yeah.
I don't know that I categorize it this way. I think I'm outside of the like way of thinking about this show in that way. Only because I think there's a lot of instincts to be like, well, Survivor people play this way and Big Brother people play that.
Well, I mean, who would you like to see cast in season 4?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see really big, crazy personalities cast on this show because the paranoia that gets drummed up in this house is so fun to watch sit on people who like can't handle it. So all respect to Boston Rob, and he's obviously amazing, and it was really fun to hear him talk it out and see him actually play the game and be strategic. But I've seen Boston Rob a lot, in person and otherwise, and he's really good at that kind of game. I think it's way more interesting to watch people really like crash and burn under the pressure of this game, right? So like a Reem, for example, would just be fun. It would just be a really fun, like interesting mess of a mentality, like in that.
Yeah, I can get behind that. Yeah, I like that a lot, dude. Yeah. Are you kidding me? Yeah,
that's what I want to hear. I want to hear more of those.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Yeah, I think that they might have to go, a little maybe off the beaten path. I don't know, because I feel like that I hear a lot of survivors are going to Fiji sometime this year. And so I don't know who's available to go to the Traitors.
That's right. We got the big 5-0 coming up. It's very exciting. Very exciting.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question from Mindy. Wants to know that should the Traitors have tried to get someone other than Sierra banished this week? Danielle knew she had the shield, and that info could have been used to the Traitors' advantage. Is this more evidence of bad gameplay from Danielle?
Okay, again, let's back up. Great question, whoever asked the question. But
Mindy.
Mindy, thank you, Mindy. What is the point of banishment? I ask myself that every time a roundtable comes up, because I get what they think they're doing, right? Because they're saying like, oh, okay, well, we get to banish this person to put suspicion, is the whole word, on other people. So like, oh, if it's this person, then they're going to really think it's that person. But if it's that person, they're going to think it's me. So I got to get suspicion off of me. Like, okay. But I don't know how consistent that logic is for everybody, right? Like, especially because, as Rob explained to us, Boston Rob, you do those things, you do the obvious thing to then make the argument that it couldn't be you because that would be too obvious, right? So like there's equal weight to a banishment, right? Where a traitor specifically can be like, well, I'm obviously not a traitor because if I got rid of Wes, then it was obviously got suspicion on me. So clearly I'm not a traitor, right? Like, or the other way around, you definitely do get rid of that person because that person was saying my name. So I have to get rid of them. So that means you're a traitor, right? So I just don't think that it carries enough like surefire strategy to banish someone for that reason or not, right? Which is why, again, I think it comes down to your own personal puzzle that you put together for yourself about who stands with you at the end, right? Like banish people who you're not working with, right? Like I don't understand why you put so much thought into like, well, we need to banish this person because it's going to look bad on that person. Maybe if that's an argument you're starting to build, but as a personal strategy, I think you should just make sure you protect the people you want to take with you and banish the people who you don't.
So when I interviewed Tony, his suggestion to improve the game was that if the faithful send out a traitor, the traitors shouldn't get to murder that night. Everybody's safe that night if the faithful catch a traitor. What do you think about that? Would that help what you're talking about?
Yeah, for sure. That's actually a really creative solution. I was thinking if you get a traitor, you get money, right? Or you add money to the pot if you get a traitor out.
Yeah.
Because you're right. I think Tony's right, where they're actually, like I keep saying, there's not enough incentive to me for the faithfuls to be so focused on getting the traitors out. As the game stands, I don't have enough reason as a faithful to put so much effort into banning getting the traitors out, because you get a traitor out, and if you're a faithful, you're now target number one of the remaining traitors, because how dare you take down one of our own, right? Like it just there's not enough incentive. So yeah, I think that's actually a good strategy where to get a traitor means something in service to the faithful's game.
Yeah.
Not getting murdered or getting money or something like that. Yeah.
I don't know how much it would throw off like the number of people still in the castle if we have to get rid of people sooner in other ways. But yeah, I do think that would be the thing that like motivates people, is that they want shields. They want to be safe.
Yeah. Everybody who voted for the traitor gets a shield the next night or something like that, if that's the way to do it, right? Now there's incentive to like be right at the table, you know?
Also, there's also like payback from the traitors. You know, you kind of don't want to be the person that's like, hey, everybody, like, let me just say I've cracked the case. Jamal's a traitor. And then, okay, and if you really are, then the traitors go like, okay, murder Rob tonight. That's it. He's on to us.
That's right. Because the whole point of you,
like, that's what happened to Derek.
Right, is to get to, that's what happened to Derek. Right. So your goal as a faithful is to be at the end for the money. Anything that puts that part of your game in jeopardy is the wrong move, right? If they're not going to go put incentives along the way. And actually, just to call back on to some conversations you and I have had about Survivor, I have felt that way about this whole like big move conversation, right? Like we've talked about that a lot, where final 9, final 8, right? People are like, oh, I got to make my big move, got to build my resume. You know, I have to have a reason to, you know, for them to give me the money at the end. That's incentive. I actually appreciate that. But what it does, right, is it raises your threat level, and now you're just the next person voted out. And so was that a good move then, that big move that you made at final 9, just because you got voted out in final 8? It's not, right? So yeah, you definitely have to incentivize the players to make moves that are actually counter to their end goal, which is to be at the end with the money. So I think that's a great idea.
Okay, Jamal, Jimmy G. Okay, I don't know if it's Jimmy Garoppolo. Says, why are we not having face-to-face banishments as part of the weekly episode? After the roundtable, we go to the turret where they discuss, and then at midnight they meet in the chapel. We start the next episode just like we did with breakfast and flash back to seeing their reaction. It's gold, no matter what. Why don't they always do it?
Yeah, that's a great call. That's a great call. That's a great call. I like that. I like that a lot. And you can do some really creative in-person banishments because that's it, right? The person banished can't go back and talk to anybody about it, right? And you just get this really fun reaction. You get the interaction, right? Yeah. I think that's excellent. And then maybe even bring that into the game, right? Like, we're going to banish you. Now you have to give us information or something, right? Like, really play with that. I think that's a great idea.
I think it is a very good idea in a vacuum. I think that there's some production logistics to one, like, they don't really sleep in the castle from what I understand. So I don't know if they go to the hotel and then at the hotel, they just like knock on a person's door. Like, hey, Jamal, you're dead. You come to the special room. We're going to give you a note. And so, like, I don't know if they're doing that, like, while everybody else is gone. I don't know how they transport everybody. It, like, maybe in the group you come into breakfast with, that's who you're with on the thing. But so I think that there's just some logistics that would prevent them from, like, actually going to somebody's room.
Nope. No sympathy for that. They can, they have the production dollars. They could
figure out a way to do it.
They can give us a better show.
Yeah. So yeah, they could find some way to do it. Okay. All right. Tommy Guam, who's in the chat, very excited that you're here, says Jamal has a very calm demeanor. Do you think that would translate as a better faithful or a traitor in the game?
Perfect. Thank you for that question. Tommy Guam, is that his name?
Tommy Guam.
Tommy Guam. Okay. Thank you for that question. I appreciate that. There are some people in my life who would be surprised to hear you say that I have a calm demeanor, but I think for the most part, yes, I do try to have one of those. All right. So here's what that tees up for me, because I have felt this way, especially with the whole Bob the Drag Queen saga, right? Where this is why I don't think it's good to like try to pick apart people's personalities too much and be like, oh, well, that's something that a traitor would do. You're being really quiet, so that's something a traitor would do. Or you're being really defensive. That's something that a traitor would do, right? Because you are Bob the Drag Queen coming into this show. You are a gigantic personality, right? And you get tapped on the shoulder to be a traitor. There is no other way that Bob the Drag Queen could have been other than the way that he was being, right? And he was either going to be that way as a faithful or he was going to be that way as a traitor, right? So you come in with your entire personality and you just are that thing as a traitor or a faithful. And I think people who try to do too much, you know, if they try to change it up because they're faithful or because they're a traitor or whatever, I think miss the thrust of the show, right? Which is like, it literally could be anybody. It has nothing to do with who you are. Nothing, right? And that's why I keep screaming at the television. It's like, so what that Sandra is this or Boston Rob is that or Bob the Track, like, it doesn't matter. Right? You just got tapped on the shoulder. So I don't think my personality would change whether I was a traitor or a faithful, right? That's what Cerie said. Cerie said she was like, every single thing I said or did in that house was completely me, except for the fact that I had to go in a turret and vote for people out. But everything was genuine. I was my complete self. She had a really hard time with Andy, I think, because that was really a tough fracturing of a relationship there. But Cerie was like, look, I didn't choose to be a traitor. Like, I just had to be me. And everything I said and did and connected with you about was truly, genuinely me. And people who can kind of pull that off, I think, are the better ways to play the game, whether you're a faithful or a traitor.
Yeah, I think that's really been Danielle's issue this season, where she seems to be really trying to play up like a different persona as a faithful to hide the fact that she's a traitor.
Yeah. I think that's right. And I'm shocked. Honestly, I don't know how she's still there. Because after that moment with the frame where she didn't put herself up there, and then she's like shaking there, like trying to make a big show of her like being so reeked with like, you know, sudden vulnerability that she could like it was way too much. And then the argument with her and Carolyn, I don't know. I just like what people really need to open their eyes if that's the goal of the show.
Yeah, it's just that I think that like for the people that know her from Big Brother and the people that know her reputation, that they know that that seems like so against type. But for the people who have never met her before, at least she's been this consistent character the whole way through that maybe it doesn't seem super suspicious to Tom Sandoval or Gabby or some of these other Lord Ivar, these people that have never met Danielle before. They just think that this is how she is.
Yeah, and that's certainly what is they're getting by on. That's what Carolyn's getting by on, right? Like people are meeting her and they're like, oh, she's quirky, right? Like anything about how she's fumbling about how to describe what Alan was wearing, you know, to that whole moment where they had to like describe because who was it? Sam was like in on the idea, like, well, if you describe what he's wearing, then you're definitely a faithful, whatever. And she started to fumble to try to explain that. Yeah, she's quirky and she kind of like loses her words and gets lost in thought. You called it her wind up, which I think is really funny to describe that. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jamal. So let me bring in a question. This is from Brendan, who says, Danielle gave Carolyn the illusion of choice by asking her if she wanted Gabby or Brittany, but then ultimately pushed Carolyn very hard into choosing Brittany anyway. Is there any way from recovering from this, or are these two donezo?
Are which two donezo?
Carolyn and Danielle as a duo. Can they recover from this?
Can they recover? They had a window, you know, they had a window when Boston Rob went home that they seemed like they were getting back on track, right? To work together.
It was a glimmer of hope.
It was a glimmer. Yeah, it was a glimmer of hope. But honestly, no, right? Because I don't think with the way that this game ends, I don't think there's a world where Carolyn and Danielle are in the final group of people to win the game. That doesn't make, could you even imagine that? Like they're both going to be there.
It would be the best case scenario, but I don't think it's going to happen.
No, they're both going to be there with another faithful or two, and they're going to all decide to end the game. And then that means Carolyn and Danielle are going to split the pot. No, you're going to have the same thing that happened when Sari got there, where she's going to be like, traitor. Like that's how it works. So yeah, no, there's no, what I love about this season is that for the first time in my viewing, maybe there was more of this in season 2, but it really was impactful to me how quickly the traitors were dysfunctional. And I was like, whoa, that adds a whole nother wrinkle to this whole game. And it was really, really fun to watch. But like, that's so obviously the way that is going to go, right? Because why is it implied that the traitors need to be working together? Like that's not actually a concrete incentive of their game.
Yeah.
So yeah, of course they're going to come in and be like, all right, I need to be the last traitor standing because my end goal is to be among a group of faithfuls who don't know that I'm a traitor and get all the money. So
I mean, Sari did it the best of like, you want to get to the end with some dummies and, you know, don't worry about the other traitors.
Don't worry about the other traitors and use them as pawns along your way to keep the suspicion off of you.
Okay. All right. I want to ask you about some of the non-traders. Let me start off with Tommy Guam asks, can we get Jamal's thoughts on Sandoval's Freudian slip?
Oh boy, you have to remind me what happened.
Okay, when he said that, hey, I think it's much more likely that women are cheaters, he said. Now, it takes two to tango.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's just silly, right? Like, I think there's a whole, like, backstory to him that I just refuse to know the details about. You know, when there's, like, a whole, like...
You're not a Vanderpump guy?
I'm not a Vanderpump guy by any means, and I just generally don't like to get in the middle of that kind of thing. Like, the whole, like...
Not your thing.
The whole Blake Lively thing going on right now. Like, I'm hearing about it, but I'm not about to like dive in and get all the details until it's like necessary or until there's some big headline about it. So anyways, that's generally my rule. I know that there's something about him cheating on someone or whatever, and people don't like him for that reason or not.
I don't got to be honest. I don't really know that much about it either, Jamal.
Okay, good.
I know he had like a girlfriend or a wife, and he cheated on her. It was the whole big thing.
Yeah.
That's it.
I will say to defend him slightly,
Oh.
if he was to be making this assertion that women are more likely to be cheaters, which is just a crazy thing to say, I will say that the reason he was saying that is because he said that women have better social skills.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't agree with him, but I do understand that there's a like mentality among men that women are more conniving, or they're more like adept at being sneaky and deceptive, so they're more successful at cheating than
Mm-hmm.
men, because men are dumb and stupid and make obvious mistakes to reveal that they were cheating. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's where he was going, but that's just being me. That's just me being
Yeah.
like,
Well, then he said he meant to say traitors. He meant like, oh, I meant traitors, not cheaters.
yeah, but like I said,
Mm-hmm.
traitor has become a stand-in for all
Mm-hmm.
attributes about a person that you
But
don't like.
But then he couldn't even pull out of it, because then Jamal, then he's like, no, of course, I mean that men are more likely to cheat. And then they were all like, oh, well, you would know anyway, Sandoval.
That's exactly right. That's
Mm-hmm.
exactly right. Well, but think about it. If he meant to say traitors, like, what is that? He's saying women are more likely to be traitors? Like,
Well, I
no.
think that because the traitors that were found
Or the two men.
were all men. But I think that he's done a masterful job of, like, literally nobody thinks he's a traitor. Like, nobody's like, this dummy is pulling one over on us. Like, he's guaranteed faithful.
Yeah, he's definitely guaranteed faithful. And I don't know
The irony.
that, yeah, for sure. But also, is that the strategy? It doesn't seem like it is, because I was listening to Puya, and also shout out to Puya for doing a masterful job of explaining this
Mm-hmm.
game to me, because he's the expert. He knows
the stuff.
the way it goes all around the world, and so I listened to his analysis. But it seems like it seems to be like a concrete or a well-worn strategy of the traitors to banish, to murder people who are for sure faithfuls, or have no suspicion by the other faithfuls that they're a traitor, I guess, is like,
right.
that's the rationale.
Because they're never going to get banished.
Yeah, they're never going to get banished, right? And I don't fully understand that. I have to think that through a little more, but apparently that's the thing. And so if you're a faithful, that's not a position you want to be in, because you're making yourself a target for the traitors.
Yeah, well, I think the idea is that if you're a traitor, you're trying to sort of like gin up the suspicion on people who might get banished, where if there's no chance that the faithful end up like taking out any of their own via friendly fire, we might as well murder this person, because that there's no chance that they're going to accidentally banish this person.
Okay, that makes more sense to me. Thank you. That's actually the piece I needed, because you're right. The strategy of the traitors is to tee up the faithfuls to kill themselves.
Yes.
Right. And not kill us. And if someone is not going to be suspected by the faithfuls, then that's an extra body who need not be sniffing around trying to figure you out, and just get rid of them.
Especially if you can find somebody who's a guaranteed faithful, but somebody had a motive to potentially want them out.
Yeah,
that they're saying somebody's name. Yeah.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. Let me see. Okay, let me ask you about just how do you think this plays out now? Do you think that Danielle goes home this week?
Danielle goes home this week.
How long can they keep it together? You think Danielle's out this time?
Possibly, right? I think they're circling. Who was the last person banished? I'm losing track.
It was Sierra.
Two at the same time. Okay, Sierra. Okay, right. So they got rid of all their theories, right? They got rid of
the coffin theory is done.
Coffin theory. They got rid of another theory too. Was out there. Oh, the Cage Boys.
Cage Boys are done. Yeah.
Cage Boys theory, right? So all their theories are gone, and they're all zeroing in on girls. And I don't think they recruit, and they murder a dude probably. Right. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, I feel like they're going to stumble on Danielle as one of the,
with Carolyn people. Like really like fanning the flames, and they push it on Danielle. Okay, but then Carolyn has to recruit somebody. What do you think? That can Carolyn then maybe turn back around and recruit Brittany? Do you think that that's possible, or is there too much damage there?
There's not a lot of damage between Carolyn and Brittany, right? This is all just damage through Danielle, right?
Would
So
Brittany work with Carolyn after she threw Danielle under the bus like that?
I wonder if so. This is where you have to consider if people are understanding their own game, right? It would be best for Carolyn to try to do that, to then have Brittany as a shield against her, and it would be horrendous gameplay on Brittany's part to accept the invitation to be a traitor, because of course that would line her up to be taken out by Carolyn, who she just witnessed take out Danielle in a feat of mutiny, right? Like that would be horrendous for her to do that. Now, I wonder if Brittany wouldn't have a choice, right? Because if Danielle goes home, okay, there's suspicion on Brittany already. If Brittany thinks that as a faithful, she would get banished anyway, she might want to harness some of the power of a traitor to try to save herself from people who are suspicious against her. So that's a way that I could see that.
Yeah, and she might have to do it. It's a blackmail of, if you don't accept it, you're out of the game. And so I don't think she's going to fall on her sword. But the actual like knowledge of the betrayal, because Danielle is a traitor and Brittany is a faithful, they're not going to have the chance to like have that overlap unless Danielle, when she gets revealed as a traitor, like kind of like, I don't even think she can do this. Like she's not going to have the one-on-one with Brittany. Like, whatever you do not trust Carolyn. Carolyn's a bad person. So Carolyn could potentially recruit Brittany, and then, Brittany doesn't necessarily know just how deep the issues were between her and Danielle.
Okay, but she witnessed that fight, didn't she? She saw Carolyn and Danielle go at it at the round table, and whatever Carolyn would have done to support Danielle going home at the banished table would also be in Brittany's sights as well. So I think whatever were to play out, Brittany should understand that Carolyn played a part in Danielle's demise.
Yeah, I don't know how probably a poisoned relationship, but maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how Brittany's gonna feel about that. Like maybe Brittany is like, great, let me like hop in on this and ride this lady to the end of the game and make my money. So that's the thing, is like if you want to, stay in the world of like relationships and, oh, does she trust me? And I'm mad at her because she banished my friend and I need to get back at her. Like if that's where the game is, then great, we can be there and like have a great time. But I think that there's then this like strategic element of the game, which is like that stuff doesn't matter, and those things should be pawns in your own goal to get to the end and win the money, right? So where do you want to play the game, right, is how I would kind of talk to the players and be like, what would you decide to do based on what part of your gameplay.
Jamal, do you have any other favorite characters in the season?
Oh boy. Well, I'm an old school challenge fan. And was a fan of Wes.
Big Wes guy. Yeah.
Big Wes guy. I feel like Wes is like, I'm fascinated by Wes because he's just so unafraid to be a villain and just like gives no F's about it. Like he's just like is who he is. He's a beast at those kinds of games.
But this is the wrong show for that.
It's the wrong show for that, right? Which was so funny to watch him burn at the round table, right? Where he tried to play his aggressive challenge game, right? By like intimidating people to not vote for him. And the girls were like, excuse me, absolutely not. Like they completely got rid of him for that reason, as they should have, right? Like it made a lot of sense to me why he crashed and burned. But the moment that he was like, how do you 100% know that someone's a traitor? It's if you're a traitor yourself. And I was like, God damn it, Wes, like you are so good at this. And I was so excited to see how his like later game strategy was going to play out. I feel like Derek and Wes needed to do a little more together because they both have that like mentality about the game, and I feel like they really could have saved themselves against Boston Rob. I don't know exactly how, but I feel like their lights were snubbed too early. So
how do you feel about
he was a favorite of mine.
Dylan Efron?
Dylan, yeah. What do I think? How I feel about
Yeah.
him?
Yeah. You like him?
I like him personally. Like, he
Yeah.
seems like a very nice man. You know, he's very, very friendly, very loyal to a fault in this game. The way that Boston Rob had him wrapped around his finger was just really hard to watch, because I saw how like starry-eyed he was, right, to be in the greatness of reality royalty, and he just was so excited to become that person for Rob, which is amazing that Rob sniffs these people out, right? Like, this is part of his game, isn't it? Like, he loves to just find that guy or that
Yeah.
person who's gonna, you know, ride his coattails and just be happy to be in his aura, you know. And so when it got revealed that Rob was a traitor, I really, like, my heart broke for him, because I realized in that moment how much his world just like shattered, you know. Yeah,
Jamal,
it's hard.
is there anything else Traitors related on your mind?
Yeah, I think I said it. I think I said all the things that I wanted to say. Just to come back to. Oh, and actually, yes. One more thing that I would love for everyone to think about with me, because I've been thinking about it. So I'm gonna make everyone else think about this too.
Okay.
This might I'm gonna try to keep it light, but it is gonna touch on something here.
Okay.
There's an interesting thing that happens, especially early on in the game, when people are so confident in their reason to be suspicious of someone, right? So I think this happened in season 2, actually, where didn't somebody like hear the fabric of Alan's coat or something and was like, oh, it's to my left, and it was against Parvati, I think, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember this in the beginning?
Yes.
Okay. So there's that moment, and then there's other moments too where like people are so sure. They're like, I heard you say a thing, or I watched your face fall, and I'm so confident that your face changing was an indicator that I caught you in your lie, and you're definitely a traitor. And they're wrong, right? They're just wrong, because that's what the game is. Like, it's a weird show that you're just wrong about who you think is a traitor. But something was being triggered for me, and I'm gonna give this to everybody else too, which is I feel like that instinct that some people have to be so sure and so like hooked on their little interpretation is what gets people falsely accused of things, right? And they sometimes like harness our like social structure to just believe them, right? So the part where this gets real, and I'll jump out of it for a second, is that sometimes I feel like, you know, when the whole like Karen thing started to be a thing,
Yeah.
and it continues to be a thing, it's like these Karens, these tears that they cry about being approached, or the man, you know, trying to talk to the manager, or feeling offended by something. It just smacks of them being like, well, I felt unsafe, and so if I feel unsafe, then that's just my reality, and I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry, because I felt unsafe, and that's just the way it's going to be. I feel like this show somehow has gamified that element of our society. And it's fun to watch in the context of the show, but man, sometimes it's really disturbing to think like, man, all someone has to do is just think that I breathed the wrong way, or, you know, they heard me, you know, they heard something, and they have to like convince everybody else that they heard the thing, and now anything I say is going to make me look suspicious. Like, that's a weird little element of our society that like works its way into Traitors, and it's really fun to watch on a TV show, but you know, it gets there for some people.
Well, I've really never heard anybody put it that way before. Do you think that speaks at all to like the incredible popularity of this show at this particular point in time? Do you think it's tapping into something different that we're experiencing?
Yeah. Yes, I do. I think it's really fun for us on the couches to feel like we would know, right? Oh man, it's so obvious. If I was there, I would definitely know that that person was a traitor, because they said this thing then, or they did it earlier, but they didn't do it. Whatever the reasoning is, like, I think it's so fun to feel like a detective in that way,
like a Detective Dean.
Yeah, like Detective Dean. Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's why this show is so fun, because I think we're all seeing ourselves in that light. But I hope the takeaway also is that you are wrong. Like you can just be you can be dead wrong, and you're ending someone's life, right? You're ending someone's rights. You're ending someone's opportunity to get money. You're right. Like, is the metaphor working here for people? Right? Like that. This mechanism has real consequences for people in the game and in life. And I hope what also comes through is like, stop making assumptions about, you know, what you think someone might do or act, and being so intense about your confidence that someone is a traitor and whatever traitor means to you. It's like, it's a really interesting thing to watch play out.
Yeah. Well, I've been in some of these mafia games or like Blood on the Clock Tower. And, you know, I myself have been like so confident. Like this person is 100% evil. They're for the bad team. I know it like deeply, like it's so obvious. And then, oh, actually they're not. And you feel so dumb. And, you know, like I think that like in most areas of my life, I'm pretty confident. Like I know nothing, you know, I can be persuaded on just about anything. But, you know, so when you play these games, sometimes you get very confident.
Yeah. Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. Like, and in like the strategy games, you can be so confident that someone's coming at you, or they're you know, saying your name in other rooms but lying to your face, and you could just know for sure that's the case, and then you watch it back and that wasn't the case at all. So yeah, that this does happen in these kinds of games. But in this particular version of it, it's just right there in front of you. Like, you are wrong. Like, you do not have this like super ability to just read people that people think,
unless you're one of the traitors.
Yeah, the traders know more. The traders know more things, but even they get deceived, you know.
Yep. Jamal, is there anything else you're watching these days that's interesting?
Oh yeah, oh for sure. I'm all in the Netflix reality world. Like I'm all about the Love and Blinds. I'm into the ultimatums. You know, yeah. I'm definitely loving those shows because I just think it's really interesting to just watch people connect and then have really, really ridiculously high expectations of each other that just obviously crash and burn. So yeah, it's a lesson on a lot of things, these kinds of shows.
Are you enjoying the new season? I heard the new season is a little slow. Love is Blind.
I haven't started it yet because it just dropped on Valentine's Day, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So I gotta, you know, I had some other things to do on that day.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. Jamal's a newlywed, everybody.
I'm a newlywed. I was just saying earlier that when I just got married in July. And so every day of the year is our first time doing that day as married couples. So like everything is just completely new. Like we had a Valentine's Day for the first time as a married person. And, you know, we're doing our taxes together for the first time. You know?
First taxes. Yeah. Hey, that's a good one. There's some deductions there.
Remember that back in the day? Well, who knows now with the way things are going, but yes, I hope that there's some benefits.
Yeah, I don't know. You might not have to do the taxes anymore. I don't know.
Honestly, that might be the way it goes. We're all on our own out here.
Yeah, I don't know.
Abolish the IRS. Go ahead. Keep going, Doge.
All right. Well, Jamal, so glad that you came by to talk about the Traitors. Lots of fun. Let me talk about what else we have going on these days. We've got Boston Rob, an extended interview. We actually had 2 Boston Rob interviews last week, so you can check that out. Our second interview with Boston Rob, about 40 minutes with Rob going through his whole game. Appreciate Rob making the time for that. You can hear that in our Traitors podcast feed. Do you ever check this show out, Dondi, Deal or No Deal Island, Jamal?
I don't, but
probably not on your radar, but oh, it's been a wild time. Deal or No Deal Island will be back on Tuesday night to recap whatever happens next on this crazy. I would try to explain it to you. It would take too long, Jamal.
Okay, I'll take my time and try to.
Boston Rob was on it last season.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Yeah.
Check it out.
All right. And then Australian Survivor is back. And I know Jamal is American Survivor only. But for the international Survivor crowd, we've got a lot of great coverage coming your way. Shannon Gus is going to be leading you with daily coverage. 3 times a week is Australian Survivor, Jamal. So Shannon Gus will have recaps for you every day and then a feedback show on the end of the week. I'll be with Shannon at the end of this week to discuss the first week's drops. And of course, we make it so easy for the patrons of Rob Has a Podcast to watch the International Survivor. For more information about that, head on over to robhasawebsite.com/patron. We've got a post up for our patrons about how you can watch along with the show. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of Survivor in a short amount of time. So get ready for Brains versus Brawn 2. Jamal, they do the same themes a lot on Australian Survivor.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then American Survivor for you, Jamal. I talked about the third of the 3 tribes with Mike Bloom. You can hear that in our Survivor podcast feed at WeKnowSurvivor.com. And then for 15 years after, speaking of Boston Rob and Sandra, 15 years after Heroes versus Villains was launched, that's the season that also created Rob Has a Podcast. And so, in honor, as tribute, Josh Wigler and I are going back all through Survivor Heroes versus Villains to honor the anniversary, 15 years. We're doing that for the patrons of Rob Has a Podcast at robhasawebsite.com/patron all season long. And then it's Bryce's birthday bash. Bryce Isaiah is having a birthday this week, and we're celebrating him all week long with a week of content on the Purple Pants Podcast. I kicked it off talking with Bryce about the ordeal that he had with Ticketmaster, with his neighbors, and what's going on TikTok. You could hear that as I talked water cooler talk with Bryce Isaiah. And make sure you subscribe to the Purple Pants Podcast at purplepantspodcast.com. And Jamal, did you check out the White Lotus?
Love White Lotus. Yes.
Okay. All right. Yes. A fellow survivor, one of our colleagues, created this show, this little show. Okay. It's on HBO. So we're trying to support a fellow survivor. Josh Wickler and I recapped the premiere of the White Lotus, featuring 2 other survivors making a cameo. Natalie and Carl, Godfather Carl, stopped by the White Lotus, and Josh and I talked about it over on WeKnowScriptedTV.com. All right. Jamal, what else is coming up for you?
Excellent. No, that's wonderful. I think you actually just queued up all of the TV that I need to watch in the coming
ton
months,
of TV going on right now. One of these days, come back to Dondi.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely gonna have to do that. Yep. Mike White, love him. Big fan of yours here, right?
Yes, mutual fans. Yes.
For sure.
So check that out. Yeah, we had a lot of fun talking about episode 1 of the White Lotus, and we'll be doing that all season long. I know.
And Heroes versus Villains was the season of Survivor that they made us watch before we went out to do Island of the Idols. So we were in silent in Ponderosa, in the cafeteria, just watching.
And Heroes they just put it on they put it on TV.
We watched the whole season front to back. I think that was their way of like getting us in the mindset to like go and actually play the game like those guys. So
Jamal, I played Survivor so long ago. I don't even think that they could have done that if they wanted to. That they put on the Eco Challenge.
Okay.
At Ponderosa. Right. We're like, what the hell is this?
Well, did you learn how to be economical?
One thing I remember is that there was somebody had like got leeches on their body from being in the Eco Challenge water.
Okay.
So not that exciting. No. Luckily, we managed to steer clear of that. All right. Well, Jamal, I appreciate you coming by and talking about the Traitors. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching. We love to read what you have to say in the comments here on YouTube. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye, everybody.